do Zoom like at work. I have 3 monitors. I do Zoom all the time, and having one laptop, I'm like lost. Yeah. So tonight, I'm really excited to talk to you about the Long Island CW Club. I just want to take a really quick poll, and folks in Zoom, I'm curious too, if you ask yourself this question: how many people here are regularly on the air with CW? Raise your hand. All right. So in this room, we've got about six regularly on the air with CW. Okay. How many of you that are not regularly on the air with CW have attempted or are attempting now to learn CW or have ever tried to learn CW? All right. Only a handful. Okay. All right. Well, I was in that group of people trying to learn CW. And if you try to learn CW today, what you're going to get almost all the time is you need to learn at 20 a minute with a Farnsworth of like 5. So you're hearing the code really fast in terms of the character speed, but there's a lot of space between the characters. So you have time to process what you heard. That's your Farnsworth spacing. And that's really, really, really difficult to ramp up your speed if you have, because that's not normally what you hear on the air. For you guys that are on the air with CW, have you ever heard anybody sending characters at say 25 a minute, but the spacing between their characters is like 8? You've never heard it in your life. Yeah, but not very often. It's not how it works. So that's not how a real QSO is. So that's not really how you should, that's a good way to learn. So let's talk a little bit about what I discovered with the Long Island CW Club, because I was stuck. After 2.5 years of trying to teach myself CW, using all the apps, all the websites and everything, I was stuck. And I discovered this in February, and I had my first QSO Sunday night. I had my first CW QSO on Sunday night, and I was pretty excited about that. And I only did that. I started learning in the middle of February, and I got on the air in April. So why CW? Why even learn Morse code right now? Why learn code now if you're not one of the 6 or whatever guys in this room? One of the great things about it is it's international. You know, you don't have the language issues that you typically might have. It's extremely reliable. It's narrow bandwidth, so you can pull out CW where otherwise you might not be able to pull out, say, a phone or a sideband contact. It's amazing what you can pull out with and you can use very, very little power when you operate. Another one is just flat out nostalgia. I really, really enjoy the nostalgic aspect of the CW and that portion of the hobby. It turns out that I learned, I'll just tell you real quick, one of the things the club teaches, even though I had a really nice, and I still have it, a really nice Bencher DY2 chrome paddle, really, really nice. And I love it. But the club teaches when you're learn with a straight key. Turn off your keyer and learn with a straight key. Because you need to hear the sound in your head and it needs to go to your hand. And you don't, just like you don't want to have a decoder telling you what you're hearing, you don't want to have a keyer on your radio forming the characters for you. You really reinforce in your head the sound of the code when you use a straight key. So yeah, I like the nostalgic aspect of it. Real quick side story. I have a key that turns out to be a museum piece, and I didn't even know I had it. I have a key that was a TR McElroy stream key, 4-wire from 1943. And a guy in the club looked at it. He's like, that's one of the only ones I've ever seen outside of a museum from McElroy. And yours is like in new condition. Where did you get it? And I can't remember getting it, the only thing I could think of is I won it early on when I joined this club at a raffle. I bought a ticket and that key was sitting there and it was all dirty and gnarly looking. And I took that key and I restored it. And this guy in the club, they have a session where, they go through some of the older keys and such. And they were really excited about this key. And I've actually had a couple of people interested in it. So the nostalgia portion. The other key that I use is also a 1943 J41A straight key. This is the one that wasn't used for radio. The J41 key was actually a telegraph key used in the field telegraph setup where, they literally had it in a bag. They're dragging wires across to the next station. And that's where the J41A, and they were both 1943 keys. So kind of cool. So the nostalgia. But the biggie today, we are seeing more and more and more people without gray hair learning CW. And the reason they are in the club and the reason they're learning CW right now is the attraction of getting outside with soda and POTA, parks on the air, summits on the air, because where I can take a radio about the size of what Dennis usually carries, if it can't fit in your pocket, Dennis isn't going to operate it. They take these very small radios with very small portable batteries and a very small antenna and a key about that big, and they, go up a 8,000-foot summit or go out into a very remote park, and they're operating CW with maybe 5 watts or less. Although I'm looking at a really nice 20 watt right now. But the point is, it's really attractive part of our hobby. And CW plays a big role in activation for soda and POTA. That's why a lot of the younger hams are really learning CW in droves in the club. All right. Another reason, it's a lot of fun. I mean, I'm a musician and I really enjoy learning the rhythm of the code. To me, that's one of the things I like the most is the journey. Learning CW is a lot of fun and operating it. When I made my first QSO a couple of days ago, that was really cool. When I realized, my gosh, I copied his call sign. There is hope. And I also mentioned already that, the idea that you can have low power, really modest antenna. You don't need a lot of money to get into CW. Another neat thing is if you're a hobbyist and you're into the electronics maker side of our hobby, a lot of people make keys. A lot of people make transmitters. It's not that hard to make a transmitter that'll get you by on CW. And there are a lot that, like Ed said, he said there's a lot of kits out there, and there are for not a lot of money. So that's a pretty interesting part. And the idea that it was kind of the original mode for our hobby. So all those things come together. So what are we saying in Morse code? Well, I wish we didn't have that flipping off like that in the room here. Your messages can be simple, they can be conversational. I participated in the SST contest Sunday night, which is a very simple exchange. All I needed was the call and the state, and it was a very simple exchange. Or you can rag chew, and you can go on for, minutes on end, rag chewing with CW. But the typical exchange typically has the standard, who are you, where are you, what's my signal report? You're going to talk about your rig, your antenna, your weather. And of course, one thing you'll learn about CW as you start your journey is there's abbreviations for everything. Larry Eicher always says to me, I've always heard him mention fine business, fine business, fine business. And I always thought, well, that's pretty cool. He says that, that's pretty neat, fine business. I never realized the root of what's that? Jim too? But this idea of Foxtrot Bravo, of this, fine good business. And we know all these, everything we know about, so much of what we know in phone is really rooted in CW. So, but Fine Business is one of my favorites. So you'll notice the abbreviations, there's abbreviations all through. And, thanks, they don't say for, they say for, because an O is da, da, da. You kind of fall asleep while you're sending it, even at 30. So they avoid long numbers if at all possible. Instead of sending a 5-9 and going, da, 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 whatever, they just do an end. You send a 5N. So you can learn all these little shortcuts. So that's another part of learning the code. And that's another part that kind of makes it fun. It's very much like learning a language. Okay, is it hard to learn? Oh my gosh, yes, you're gonna die. No, it's not that bad. In fact, it's fun. And the idea of the Long Island CW Club is this is the first time I ever really, I have to say, had fun learning CW, using the method that they use. You do have to make a time commitment, but it can be when you want to do it, when you have time. And this is one of the big differences between the Long Island CW Club, for example. And has anybody heard of gone or tried to go through CW Academy? Okay, that's a little different. Okay. How can you learn CW? Well, you can learn it very linear. You can learn it where I'm going to learn A&M, and now I'm going to learn S&T, or now I'm going to learn, and you can, and a lot of classes that are online require you to be there. You will be there on every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. And if you're not, there are going to be issues, where, you have to commit. That is not the way the Long Island CW Club works. They use what's called carousels, and I'm going to talk to you about that. So the commitment of time, there is a commitment of time, but it's achievable. Basic proficiency, 4 months to get on the air. Yeah, I did it, and I am as sharp as a bowling ball. I've said that almost every meeting, and I was able to get on the air in about 3 months or so. But to be really fluent in the code, it takes probably about a year, and this is going to vary for different people. Mastery, and what is mastery? Well, it's really up to you where you're comfortable. When you guys look at the reverse beacon network, well, you guys that operate, is it safe to say the majority? Now, I know there's going to be exceptions, and I'm not counting computers. I'm not talking my computer talking to your computer at 45 a minute. That's cheating. The majority of your QSOs are between 20 and 25 a minute, right? Where are yours?
35 to 38.
Okay, and that's not with a straight key, that's with paddles. So you're a rock star. Any other rock stars in the room? No. So the majority of the QSOs out there are going to let you're a contester. He's got the hat. He's a contester. Yeah, contesters. Why do contesters run so fast?
You want to make as many as you can.
You want to make as many as you can.
Because propagation changes. You may have propagation for 4 hours. If you can make 200 contacts in 4 hours, and the other guy makes 120.
Sure.
You're that far ahead of you.
So contesters have incentive to operate very, very quickly. So, and thank you. So contesters by nature, they're just because of being in a contest, the faster you are, the more you make. So I would submit though, that if you're operating that quickly, you are going to be contacting people that also operate that quickly.
Something, if I may interject, something you always do, some people don't do it, but if somebody comes back to you quite often, running it, I like to run at 34, 36 words a minute. Somebody comes back to me at 26 or something, I always think they may be strained. There may be a 22 word per minute operator. You always slow down. It's just, you always slow down.
I did not pay him. Did I talk to you before the meeting? This is one of the things that the Long Island CW Club ingrains into their new operators. You know, he's a good guy. And most, guess what? Almost everybody on CW are good guys. And he's even talking about a contest. And he's saying, yeah, I'm operating above 30 a minute. And if I hear somebody straining at 22 or 25, I'm going to slow down for him. And guess what? That's the way it is too when you get on the air with CW. You do not have to get on the air. You don't have to wait until you're at 20 a minute to get on the air. You can get on the air at, I got on the air at 12 a minute, 12 and 12. Straight up 12 a minute. And you know what? There are tons of opportunities to get on the air at 12 a minute. Now, that doesn't mean that I can't answer. I can work POTA a lot faster than that. Why? Because if you're working POTA and you have the POTA app, who works POTA on phone? Anybody on phone? What do you know? When I get on the POTA and I look at the online on the website, I already know their call. I already know their location, their state. I know a lot about them just by looking at, you know, just the nature of POTA. And the exchange is very simple. What else do I know about POTA that's really neat is POTA CW. Dennis, POTA CW, what does the website show you if they bumped the reverse beacon network?
Oh, that, it shows your signal where it gets out.
Yeah, well, that's what the reverse beacon, but what does it report back to POTA? Anybody know?
Oh, speed.
Yes, your speed, your words per minute. So let's say I'm a new CW operator, because I'm a new CW operator. And let's say I'm comfortable pretty much with anybody under 20 a minute. All right, I can go onto the POTA app now, work CW, filter it for CW, and I can look. And if they bumped the reverse beacon network reports back to the POTA website and will put down they're operating at 16 words a minute.
When you say the POTA app, do you mean the spotting?
Yeah, the smallest, not spot, it's the actual POTA app. Yes, POTA.app. But it will show you the speed in CW if they hit the reverse beacon network that they're operating. But you also can hear it. You can hear it when you work it.
The app for a phone or for a desktop?
No, it's online. Yeah, it's online. All right, I was going to show the teaching method video, but I would much rather talk about it. So they give us this screen to talk about the teaching method. How many people have heard about the Koch method? Anybody heard about Koch? Okay, German dude, early 1900s, really smart guy. Okay, why was there such an emphasis on rapidly teaching CW and let's say from 1915 to I don't know, April of 1945? What was the urgency to teach CW? Yeah, that's right. World War I, World War II. It was really important for communications that all countries were able to ramp up and learn CW very rapidly. The fate of their country depended on effective communications.
Backup Morse code was used by the intelligence officers in the Civil War.
Yeah, it's been around for a while. But what I'm talking about is when did they really start studying how to learn it? And that's what Koch and a bunch of other people did, is they studied learning CW. And the big thing that Koch mentioned is this idea, the importance of hearing a single acoustic sound. And what do I mean by that? Okay, you guys are going to laugh. But this is how I learned CW, and you're welcome to laugh. With the Long Island CW Club, we have what's called carousels. Well, this isn't the funny part. Carousels are, you can hop on the carousel whenever you want. The Long Island CW Club has over 150 classes a week. They have over 150 classes a week. They have Beginner's Carousel 1, where there are 18 letters that you learn on that carousel. I can hop on that carousel at any time when they're offering the class. I can hop on and hop off. One night they might cover learning R and T for that week. And every week has an assignment of what you're learning on that carousel. All I basically am telling you is it's not linear. I can hop on when I'm able to hop on. And not all the classes are at 3 p.m. I could be on Beginner's Carousel 1 and I want to learn that week's letters. And there might be 6 offerings for Beginning Carousel 1 at different days of the week and different times for that week. And I picked the one that's convenient for me. That is how I was able to learn CW so quickly, because it was a way that worked for me. My director of activities at home, maybe you all have a director of activities. My director of activities at home is kind of sensitive about how and where I spend my time, because we've got this thing called a home and we kind of keep it running and that sort of thing.
It's the Secretary of War.
Yeah, the Secretary of War, you said it, not me. So, but the point is, this carousel method that they use is huge. Beginner's Carousel 2 introduces the remaining letters. You learn 18 on Carousel 1. And oh, by the way, I don't have to complete Carousel 1 to hop over to Carousel 2. I can hop into a Carousel 2 class, even if I've been focusing on Carousel 1. So you can learn them how you want to learn them. What if you already started learning CW and you're already strong in some letters? Well, if they're teaching that on Carousel 1 and I already know those letters cold, well, I'll take Carousel 2 that week. So it was a perfect setup for me. And so that's how it works. The character sequence, one thing that caught everybody thinks, okay, anybody download an app? What were the first 2 letters most apps that teach the Koch method have? K and M. Anybody remember? K and M are the 2 letters you always learn first, and that's not even Koch. That wasn't him. He did not, those were not his letters. What Koch did recognize, though, is the importance of when you learn CW, you never learn it. The kiss of death is looking at anything visual to learn CW. If you are looking at a paper that has dots and dashes on it, you have already lessened your ability to learn CW. Take that paper and burn it, because that is the absolute worst thing you can do to learn CW. What really kills me are those charts that show, oh gosh, I don't know what Einstein came up with that. Because what Koch realized is the importance of when you learn CW, you want to learn it as a single acoustic sound. So the way he teaches the character R, oh, and by the way, he realized after a lot of testing that if you look at the human brain, anything below 10 a minute, you start counting dits and dots. Anything below 10 a minute, and it's just the way we're wired. You are naturally going to go, dit, da, dit. Okay, that was, let's see, a dit, a da, and I'm drawing a picture of my brain and a dit. Okay, that was an R. Must have been, because it's a dit, a da, and a dit. Okay, do you think I'm going to get to 30 words a minute doing that? No. The way you get to 30 words a minute is you learn everything as a single acoustic sound, and you build those sounds together into a combination of letters. And then you build that combination of letters into a combination of words. You get what I'm saying? So the idea is to learn it as a single acoustic sound. So in the Long Island CW Club, the first way that they teach you when you learn a letter, they say, get out your pencil, get out a piece of paper. And you're on Zoom. They have 5 at least Zoom rooms going all day long, every day, 7 days a week. When you hear a sound, make a dot on your paper. They won't even tell you they'll try not to tell you what the letter is. Here, dot it. Okay, I heard a sound. Dot it. Okay, I heard a sound. Did it. I heard a sound. Do that for like a minute. Did it. Okay, I heard a sound. Did it. Heard a sound. Lather, rinse, repeat. They don't tell you what the letter is. Did it. I heard a sound. This is how Koch did it. Next thing. Did it. R. Really? Did it. R. And you repeat that. Did it. R. Did it. R. Did it. R. Dot dot K. Dot dot K. Dot dot K. Dot dot K. And just you're not and frankly, it even teaches better not even to say did dot it. In fact, you can say anything but did dot it if you want to. Doesn't really matter because if even you say did dot it, your brain might still be making lines and periods, lines and dots. So that is the method. That is how they teach letters. And then they'll introduce that same lesson. They'll introduce another letter. That same lesson. They'll introduce another letter. Usually 2 letters, sometimes 3 a session. And then they build. Now we're going to do last week's. And when you get to beginner, after you've learned that full 18 of beginner's carousel 1, when you go to beginner's carousel 2, whatever they add, and for that night's 2 letters, they pull in everything you've learned in beginner's carousel 1. And now in beginner's carousel 2, when they do what's called instant character recognition, you pull in those other 18, and now we're adding more and more to our Morse vocabulary. And they have probably the most advanced practice software page I've ever seen in my entire life. It blows away literally everything I have ever tried to use to learn CW. They have where the speed will ramp up, it'll ramp down, it's unbelievable how advanced their trainer is. We learn at 12:10. 12:10 is what we learn at. And then when you get into the intermediate classes, after you've been, beginner's carousel 3 is all geared toward getting on the air. Now I've learned all my punctuation, I've learned all my numbers, I've learned all my letters, now I'm starting to learn some of the abbreviations. Now I'm starting to learn how to get on the air. And every week they dedicate to a different thing. Tonight we're going to talk about soda. Now we're going to talk about POTA. Now we're going to talk about some of the contests. They even have one for field day, which I understand is going to be a field day this year. So the idea, though, is to establish that character familiarity as a single acoustic sound and then ramp up and don't have this crazy Farnsworth, they call it the Farnsworth trap. Don't have this huge Farnsworth spacing that most of the apps on your phone have today. So it's unbelievable. The hardest thing for me, is anybody else, I am cursed with being an engineer. Are any other people in the room cursed with being engineers? Okay, got a lot of hands, sorry guys. Because however, I'm blessed by being a jazz musician. Any other jazz musicians? All right, no problem. The beauty of being a jazz musician is what's the difference between a jazz musician and a classical musician? Classical musician, when you make a mistake, it sticks out like a sore thumb and half the audience cringes. Jazz musician, when you make a mistake, everybody applauds because it's outstanding sound. That's why I like being a jazz musician. So you can make a mistake and be a jazz musician, and in fact, you'll probably be applauded for it, literally. In CW, if you approach it like an engineer, you will fail. Well, I'll ask you, I'm glad you're right in front. Have you ever missed copying something?
Oh, never.
Well, Dennis, for everybody that operates, seriously, do you get 100% copy every single time?
Well, sometimes, I might hear it.
Yes, okay. Well, everybody's gonna have different reasons, right? Dog I had to let the dog in. My beer overflowed and it's going on the table. I thought it would short out my key. There you go. So So what happens is that even the people that are outstanding operators don't copy 100%. But I will tell you what you're good at. You're good at not dwelling on it.
We get the gist of it.
You get, right? But at some point, you have to accept that you're going to make mistakes. You have to accept that you're going to miss things when you copy. You have to accept that you might mess up sending something. But the most important thing is to move on. Because by the time you dwell on what you missed, you've already missed another 3 characters. So the hardest thing I've had in my CW journey as a cursed engineer, I have to channel my jazz musician side. And I have to understand that if I miss a character, I don't dwell on what was that, because as soon as you do that, you've missed the next characters. That was the hardest. If you ask me what's the hardest thing about learning CW, I will tell you the hardest thing for me personally learning CW is learning how to let go. Learning how, when I miss one, let it go. There's always the question mark. There's always things you could do. But this bottom one, I wish this was in big, huge letters at the very top. Not dwelling on the errors. Yeah,
So when I was an artist, I copied, solid copy. As so lid. You know what a lid is?
yeah.
It's a screw up, okay?
Mhm.
I was so embarrassed. I can't do this because I thought someone was calling me a lid. Because I was copying so slow in my brain, so S-O and then L-I-D. So lid, what to do? Yeah, so anyway, that's my claim to fame as an artist.
So I'm going to talk briefly about the club. They were founded in 2018, or I'm sorry, founded in 2018 because they realized for 2017 they needed more operators. They had field day in 2017 on Long Island, multiple clubs up there, and they realized, you know what, we just don't have that many CW operators. Sound familiar? Sound familiar? Okay. They also wanted a way to get back to the amateur radio community in general. So their goal, and this is crazy, their goal was to have 50 members in the Long Island area. That humble goal. Right now, they have over 6,000 members, all 50 states and over 50 countries worldwide, 60 countries worldwide. All right. They have well over 100 instructors. In fact, my first QSO was with a fantastic instructor, Mike, November 2, Papa India was N2 PPI was my first QSO. Great guy. Well, like I mentioned, over 150 classes. They have classes in English and Spanish. They have a bug they developed for people that are hard of hearing, or not a bug, but a tool for people that are hard of hearing. And we're going to talk about that. They also offer. Well, I'll show you. It's here. Let's talk about the club resources real quick. This is unbelievable. The resources that open up to you when you become a member. And it's not just learning CW. There are resources about how do I adjust my paddle properly? Identifying what kind of key is this? How do I set up my rig to optimize it for CW operation? They cover Yaesu, Kenwood, ICOM, you name it. They do it through a YouTube channel. They have a newsletter. They have a Facebook page. They have a podcast they put on every week. They have a very large Discord server presence where people can say, hey, I'm getting on 40 meters on 7.040 if anybody wants to drop by. They have their Dropbox is huge, full of files and resources. And and manuals and guides and study guide. Like I said, they have the most advanced practice page I've ever seen in my entire life. They also have a V-band. Anybody ever heard of V-band? Do you know what it is? No?
Yeah.
What is V-band?
So it's a place online where you can go and gotta get an electronic key or something to talk to people over the internet instead of over the air.
Right? V-band, what V-band allows, and the reason why it exists, is what if you don't have a radio yet? And you want to learn CW? And you still want to be able to have a QSO with somebody? Well, you can do it with a computer keyboard, and you can use V-band. There's also for like $20 or so, you can get a USB interface where you can actually hook a key up to your computer and participate and have a QSO on V-band. It's just another way of practicing to eventually get on the air. It's another tool. There's also an LICW challenge page where hams come together and coordinate QSOs together. And there's a massive section for academic downloads. Everything you can imagine about the history of CW, the psychological theory, learning, getting your speed up, contesting. There's a big, huge file section on improving your contesting with CW. Just a lot of resources. Well, I don't know if the cost is in this or not. You might say, well, Bob, okay. The cost for the club is $30 a year, or you can get a lifetime membership for $90. And I'm like, it was a no-brainer. I got in for $90. I got a lifetime membership. I don't have to renew it. I'm in. I got all the resources. And for me to get on the air, if you would have told me in February when I joined this club that I would have been on the air in April, I would have said you were totally Cocoa for Cocoa Puffs. And I can't believe that, again, I am not that sharp. I will say I'm a musician though. And I do believe that's true, because one thing the club teaches, the one thing they teach is if you're a musician, if you have any kind of rhythm, tonal capability at all, or, and here's the part I loved, if you're under 18, now I know nobody in the room qualifies, but I thought that was pretty interesting, that you can learn CW using almost any method. If you're a musician and you have natural rhythm and tonal, or if you're under 18, then you can learn CW, tea leaves in a cup. I mean, any method will work for you. You just need to find that method. But for the bulk of the people out there doing what the club recommends. Now, I've been talking a lot about the basics, about learning characters and that sort of thing. But there is a lot more to what they offer besides just the core curriculum. And I think to go on this journey of CW, I think there's a lot more to it than just learning the rote sending and copying. There are literally classes that introduce you to the classes because it's so fast that there are many YouTube videos on this too. You guys get on YouTube, just go LICW on YouTube and you'll see a lot of these. They're free, they're online, introductory and things you can learn about the club. But there's sending prep, building productive practice habits, not just saying, hey, here's a web page, go learn CW. The web page, the practice page is in sync with the classes that you take, and they teach you how to practice. So you're learning how to learn.
Are they real-time classes or are they like camp?
No, the Zoom classes are
Not streaming the real.
the Zoom classes are real classes with real instructors. And yep, and there's classes that are for women only. There are classes for hands with disabilities, for the hearing impaired. There are classes. I'm just going through the Good Fist Sending Club, qualifying. Oh, they have a Code Buddy program. Let's say you're a kind of person that you really enjoy learning with a running buddy. If I could have somebody that's a running buddy for me that that, you know, a lot of people are that way. A lot of people can be motivated, a lot of people can be motivated to learn if they have somebody learning with them. So they have actually a coordinated program where you could pair up with somebody who might be at your level and you're both might have the same goal. I say when I first joined the club in February, hey, I'm looking for somebody who might want to join me in having a goal of operating at Field Day 2025 CW. Well, if I'm, you know, say I found somebody who wanted to do that, now I got a running mate, I got a running buddy, I got somebody that I can be accountable to them, they can be accountable to me, and we're gonna go through this together and maybe even have a little friendly competition between ourselves. There are a lot of classes on the QSO protocols, many. There are classes for contest protocols. There are classes for field day protocols, SOTA, POTA, I already mentioned. Learning the different protocols for contests and for events can be helpful to give you that comfort level of getting on the air. I talked about VBAM. CW Makers is a lot of fun. There are a lot of people that enjoy 3D printing or maybe restoring old equipment. There's a really nice, like this is a football lecture series that the club has of basic electronics. I mean, it takes you from Ohm's law all the way through to, you know, building a transceiver. It's pretty neat. And that's available. So I really enjoy not just the idea of learning to copy and send, but just all the club has to offer. There's weekly forums. There's one called Boat Anchors, which is, I've sat in on that one. That is a lot of fun. QRP, contesting, technology antennas, historical events. It's unbelievable what they cover in the hobby. I talked about, bugs. Okay. Does anybody operate bugs?
Release what?
A bug? Yeah, bug. Okay. Right. This club is really into straight keys and they're really into bugs. And they have forums for, you know, hey, I got this old bug, you know, it's busted up. I need to get it back together. And they literally will have a maker session on, and it's for that one person. It'll be like, let's get this guy's bug going. And you might have like 8 people that are really some of the most knowledgeable people in the country helping them. The guy that recognized my key is like one of the leading authorities on TR McElroy and like the country. And so when he saw my key, he was so excited. So that some of the leading experts are in this organization. Elmer 101, there are Elmers available throughout the entire club for your CW journey. And that might be about, maybe you would prefer that kind of relationship in your learning. You know, the idea of the buddy program is a running buddy, you know, somebody who's with my level. Maybe you're more of an Elmer kind of person where I'd rather have my Obi-Wan Kenobi that I follow. And then portable ops, and I already mentioned the electronic theory. There's a lot more to it than just learning CW. Over 300 YLs, actually a lot more than that now. Some of my best instructors are YLs that I'm learning from. And the interesting thing is a lot of my instructors have only known code for about 3 years. And they're running it, you know, 25 a minute now after 3 years in the club. And they're teaching, they're instructors.
They have to be able to copy 100% for like 5 minutes straight. They can't miss a single letter in order to be instructed.
Not in Long Island CW.
Yeah, the bar to be an instructor is incredibly fun. But
In the Long Island CW club? Are you sure we're talking about the same club?
they were just telling me, yeah, because I'm in the 9 o'clock intermediate one every single night that they have. And the instructors are talking about how in order to make instructor, you've got to be perfect.
Really?
For a
That's
very
interesting.
Long time, yeah.
So 25 words?
And they've only been doing it, a lot of them, for 3 years.
Yeah. That's really impressive. I did not know that. So, okay, so you're a member of the club. How long have you been a member of the club?
February 5th. I just checked when you were talking.
You joined, our numbers are probably close, yeah.
Yeah, so I was a novice way back in the day. I knew like 20 of the letters. In January, I think, I saw KP9BBR on YouTube doing CQ with the buttons of the
Yep.
FD891, and I'm like, I gotta figure this out. So I went and got the buttons, I got FLDG to, to copy and stuff. And I sat down with intermediate one, I learned, I sat in BC1.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I know this, and the instructors are like, you know this, I drilled on the letters. They said, you know this, jump up to intermediate one, it's 12 words a minute. But if you know all the letters, just jump to intermediate one. I struggled a little bit. But then after 3 months now.
Excellent.
Pretty good.
Excellent testimonial. I already mentioned that they are committed to people with disabilities for the hearing and visually impaired, screen readers, the whole bit.
Things called,
What's that?
you know what that thing is called?
They
I
call,
haven't seen that.
yeah, they call that the haptic, I forget. But there's a video on this on YouTube. And they do have classes for kids. So ages 5 to 17. And it's modified for how they learn, and over 600 have learned CW so far. I'm not sure what the cost structure is. for
Was
kids.
using the Navy key.
What's that?
She was using, that's, I think called the frameless.
You recognize the key?
Yes. I have that one on eBay.
It was used in, explosive, basically could have explosive atmospheres.
So guys, that's all I really had about the Long Island CW Club. I encourage you to, if you want to learn more about CW or you want to improve your proficiency, I think it's for everybody. I mean, I think regardless of where you are, based on what I've seen with the club. Huh?
Have you signed up for Code Buddy?
No, I didn't.
I did, and I haven't got it.
Yeah, I never did.
That's the. Want to remember, you gotta write it down. You can't get.
Yeah,
I can't write 20 words.
right. That's the thing. You can't, yeah.
So I went over to the typewriter. This was years ago when I was getting 20 words a minute. And I never knew what I copied after I finished it. I read it over on the typewriter.
There you go. Right. So yeah, what you're talking about is head copy. And one of the things we learn about, and I know you know this, and head copy is your buffer. You know, how you increase what they call your buffer in terms of how much you can store. Okay, so guys, it's running kind of late. I went long, but I always go long when I present. And but we had a good interactive session. Go ahead.
Can I, if I talk fast, could I mention?
Yeah, go ahead.
Talk about the abbreviated numbers.
Yeah.
Those are called cut numbers. And my understanding, the way they started out in contesting, a lot of guys either hate them or you love them. And there's 5N is 599.
Yep.
A T is a 1 and I mean, is a 0, an A is a 1, and a few that are common.
Right.
They've got 10 of them. They were used back in the day when a lot of the mundane communication military bases was
Right.
or using bugs or whatever they were using. And they were like reporting on the stuff in inventory, have serial numbers.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, they were sending numbers all the time.
That was
Yeah.
boom, you get a big number,
Right.
it's about this long now.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, and so that's that. And you talked about Farnsworth method. In a light defense of it, because I don't really care. Back in the day, years ago, ARRL used to have the code tapes. Whoever saw those things? Yeah, well, the old guys.
The FCC used them for testing.
It was 5, 7.5, 10, and 15 words a minute. Well, they would come out, it would be 5 words a minute would be da.
Right. Yeah, that's bad.
And then we're talking, but, so what they, as you get better, as you turn, listen, when you listen faster, you get better, the da-da-did,
Right.
it gets faster. Well, what you're actually doing is every time you increase your speed, you're relearning what that sound is.
Right.
That's a pain in the butt. So typical Farnsworth, you can do whatever you want. 22 words a minute, 13 minute spacing. That way, you're getting the sound at 22 words a minute, whatever. But you're putting a big space between it. Because as you learn to recognize that faster,
Right.
you can close that dead space up. And you're not learning the sound. All you're doing is losing space. So instead of it's
Right.
it just loses space. That way you got enough to learn when you're a newbie.
The club started at 20 a minute with a farms of like 8. It was very similar to what you're talking about. They started at 20 a minute with a farms of 8. Only 40% of the members ended up getting on the air. Since they have switched to 12 and 10, their percentages are like 90. So the idea is to try to get on to where and then once you get that foundation built, your speed will come, because what they discovered is it's easier to increase the character speed than it is to increase the farms. Because when they were teaching at a larger Farnsworth, they had much less success statistically. So that's why they do what they do. All right, that's all. We got to do new business, old business, guys. Get out of here. What do you got?
So I have a handicap, besides being old. My handicap is the old guys, like, you're not old, but my old friends who do coffee in their head, okay, so listening to you, so. I copy all kinds of stuff, I copy it, whatever. But they're copying the conversation, that's what they're even, they're saying, Dennis, wait a minute, I'll tell you what it said. I can't do that.
Yeah.
I can copy.
I can't listen and talk at the same time.
No, I know, but, you know, when you carry on a QSO and you copy your head, to me, that is the ultimate CW operator. And the other thing that I had, I never learned to type. So when you come out to field day, when I ask for a logger, it's because I can't type fast enough to put it in. So
you could
guys, learn CW, learn how
All right.
to use typing.
So guys, we do have to wrap it up. So I do want to say, thank you all for being so attentive. I know for a lot of people, you play well. I just, the only reason I